We'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Pishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Rudavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidhusura suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are on the 6th chapter, which is on the Atma Sanyama Yoga, or as we call it, as the chapter on meditation or Dhyana Yoga. So typically when we think of meditation, we think that it is just shutting one's eyes and perhaps repeating a mantra or thinking about a symbol or bringing the act of the deity in our mind. But this chapter really tracks us through really the highest spiritual practice that we need to really understand and which we need to practice very, very, I would say, diligently. And it is something that when we do this, it leads to the purity of mind. And when we have the purity of mind, automatically the mind becomes very calm. So this is the whole idea by which this chapter has been structured. Now, we may ask ourselves, though, I can definitely calm my mind, if I just close my eyes. But I think we all will agree that it doesn't happen that way. Most important and very, very simply put, it is because we have a lot of desires and we have attachment to things, attachment to situations, attachments to objects, attachment to so many different things. So these are really the reasons why meditation doesn't happen just like that. So this chapter starts off very clearly with that aspect on why this whole why meditation cannot really happen if we don't take care of some of the very key disciplines. So with this, last time, I think I was very happy to see two people who really thought about this aspect of what we discussed last time. In spite of poor connection, we had a very poor connection last time. But I think this figure really helped people connect a little bit to this aspect of calming the mind down, right? So the mind is unable to calm down because of, like I said, the attachment and desires. And this attachment and desires, they come because we are constantly looking for an outcome in anything and everything we do. And this is the outcome, which is relation to, what will I get out of this? Will I feel great? Will I feel, by having this position of whatever it is? At workplace, it could be any of the work positions, but in a personal level too, something which we don't think about it so much, but something which really warrants an understanding, and that is the position. When I say position, we are playing a role. We play the role of a mother, we play the role of a father. Now, you may say, how is this related to a position? But I think it is, in some sense, because I can tell you that last week, December 2nd, actually, my niece gave birth to a child here, so this is our first grandchild in my generation. So my father is the great grandfather right now, great grandparents. And, so I automatically became a grandmother. And now when I relate, now I'm like, okay, I have to see my grandson now. I have to go to Chennai, back there. So I have gained one position. So I now become attached to this position of grandmother. I was not a grandmother until last week. I am a grandmother for many of our Balvihar children who have given birth to their children. So I consider that I'm a grandmother for all of them, grandmother too. But this position of grandmother, now it is like in my family. I thought to myself, this is giving me a different now attachment. Now you may say, isn't that a good thing? Of course, it's a good thing. But I also have to recognize that this position came to me now, and it wasn't there before. So there is that sort of a temporariness associated with this position. Why am I really getting attached to it? I take it as a role, I perform that role, but I should not get attached to that role, So I just thought I'll put that in as about how positions also create a sense of, a feeling in our mind. And then, of course, feeling good about things. Then we talked about identity, how in all of this, in this outcome, this I-ness is there. Like, I am the grandmother. It's because of me things got done. Everywhere, this identity is there. And any action which we do leads that impression in these two areas of outcome and I. And also the reason I put action separately is because my mind immediately wants to get into an action. Even as I'm sitting for meditation, why is it I'm unable to sit for more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Because my mind is forcing me to get into action. So it is in this regard. So this, I think, helped Suvarna. She sent me a note about how this diagram in some ways helped with the meditation aspect, but she brought up one important thing which I wanted to address here. When she says about how that in spite of the fact that we understand from this chapter about how mind is our friend and is also a worst enemy, this shlokas 5 and 6 we talked about, but we need some medications to calm this mind also. Very true, we do need this. When do we need and why do we need? That is the part which really needs a reflection here. We tend to take the medicines because we are unable to use our mind to calm ourselves down. Because we have not yet really perfected this mind yet. Now, in the past, how did our rishis manage this, right? Did they also keep taking Tylenols all the time to calm their mind down? Or here it is, Tylenol is replaced with Dolo. But they were able to get a grip on this mind. If we recognize that many times we get our headaches, at least psychological headaches, not physical headaches. Physical headaches, we're not talking about physical headaches here, we're talking about mental headaches. Mental headaches is a huge thing. It is we get headaches because of stress and anxiety. Now, why does stress and anxiety happen? Because of, again, this diagram here, because of my identification or attachment to this I-ness and identification or attachment to what will come as an outcome. So these are the two reasons we get our headaches, our psychological headaches. But since we are not there yet in completely, completely convincing this mind of us that is where the problem is. Therefore, we are forced to take pills to calm that mind down, because to that extent, the mind does help us in that. And of course, I'm sure there's some physiological reasons also. Physiological reasons in the sense, because of stress, there are certain, whether it's the nerves, you may call it the muscles, all these things need to be calmed down. And that is where that external force comes in. The medicine actually helps that external muscles and nerves to calm down, which then allows us temporarily to do what we want. But has the problem really gone away? No, the problem hasn't gone away. The problem is still there. And therefore, chapter 6 is very important from that point, to recognize what are the internal things I can do to calm my mind down. So I just thought I'll elaborate that a little bit. And Suvarna, thank you for recognizing this aspect, which is very, very important. Bhagavad Gita is coming from a very high level, but we need to bridge that gap with all these questions and reflections. Otherwise, we ourselves may not necessarily totally buy into Bhagavad Gita. That is the reason for bringing this reflection time as an important aspect here. And she also brought up this aspect of kutastaha indicating be that anvil, kuta means anvil. We'll come to that shloka as a little bit of review here. But always, if you have that image of that anvil, not about that iron pieces, which is what we are. Anvil is that stand on which the iron pieces are hammered into thin bits and all that. We might even look at it as, I remember when we went to, what is that town, German town near above Flint, where you get this fudge, Frankenmuth, exactly, Frankenmuth. When you look at, or even if you go to the ice cream place, where they beat the thing down. What is that place? I forget the name also. I don't remember. But, they keep beating the ice cream down and they mush it up
Cold
and all
Stone.
that.
Maggie Moo.
Cold Stone, exactly, Cold Stone. When we look at all these things, our mind will go to the ice cream, right? But we need to focus on that surface. How that surface doesn't do anything to the surface. The ice cream is the one which is getting mushed up. I'm using a modern day example because you and I won't really take a hammer and beat on an anvil down any of the iron bits, but definitely the idea is be that steady surface. So bring our mind to that steady surface that nothing really disturbs us, So that is kutastaha. Okay, so today we'll chant the shlokas, because by now you would have, the reason for chanting again is because as we go through each of the shlokas, some of the words can come to your mind. as a kind of a meditative tool to help us really see the bigger picture. So the 6 shlokas we talked about were first, Krishna introduces this term renunciation or sannyasa. And the only reason for doing that, he's trying to ask us to remove that I factor, which I showed in the diagram there, and also to remove this attachment to the outcome. So that is the reason why he brings it here. And then he focuses upon Karma Yoga, again, because it's only Karma Yoga which is where I'm actually doing something in order to be that person. So we have said meditation is a state of being, but to come to that state of being, I have to do something. So it is, prior to that aspect of sitting down is where most of the work needs to happen. And that is why Karma Yoga is again and again and again emphasized, and which is why I guess this whole chapter of Bhagavad Gita is coming right in the middle of Mahabharata, because it's only through Arjuna's example that we will be able to understand what really meditation is. And therefore, he keeps on emphasizing work on the means, don't work on the goal. And we, on the other hand, we always think on what is in it that I will get after I finish it, right? So it's here continuously keep on working on the goals. And then he's trying to also, once he said this, and that is why the shloka Udaredatmanatmanam and everything is important, is because all this time when we think about, okay, I'm working on my means, on how I can get there, but who's going to help me? Can I just go and surrender myself to Lord Venkateshwara and tell him that you are the only one who's going to help me? Lord Venkateshwara is saying, no, that's not going to, what is going to happen? I'll tell you what you need to do, but guess what, buddy? Just get up and you do it by yourself. That is why the shlokas 4 and 5 and 6 and everything is coming to tell us. So with that, let's just chant the first 6 shlokas. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana Arurukshor munir yogam karma karana muchyate yoga rudasya tasyaiva shamakarana muchyate yada hinendriyartheshu na karma svanushajyate sarva sankalpa sanyasi yoga rudastadochyate Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadhayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. So this completes one section of the 6th chapter where Lord Krishna is trying to give Arjuna a confidence to take up Karma Yoga. And not only that, in Karma Yoga, to do it by myself, do it yourself. And that is the only way you're going to rise up. So that is what the first 6 shlokas said. Now, from shloka number 7, he's trying to now give us a little bit on how, how when you do this, how when you actually integrate your mind and intellect, what is that, how does it help you? Because we know that at the end of the day, the mind can be helped only through the higher mind, which we call this as an intellect. So to do this, the mind and the intellect has to be in line with each other. So that is why in Shloka 7, the message comes out loud and clear that progress in this whole realm of meditation is possible only when I let the mind clearly understand, with the help of the intellect, that these desires at the end of the day are something which is very inert, it's very temporary. We need to be really aware of that. And that is why he translates that aspect of desires into, only three things: situations, objects, and people. So he says at the end of the day that if you have really understood how to handle situations, objects, and people, you're going to have really a grip on this meditation, which will allow you to totally understand what your true nature is. So with that, in the shloka number 7, where again, Meena has offered her reflection on this, and we'll come to that part of it. So, jitat manaha prashantasya paramatma samahitaha shitoshna sukha dukkeshu tatha manapa manayoho. So, three pairs of opposites are shown here: heat and cold, pleasure and pain, and praise and insults. So somebody who can actually have a grip on all of them, all these three pairs. I mean, you can see how, if you go to, we don't have Barnes and Noble and all that these days, but if you go to many of these bookstores or now go to Amazon, you'll see millions of self-help books, But just this one book of Bhagavad Gita, where it just distills down to some simple concepts like heat and cold, praise and insult and all that, just immediately you see how the self-help can be brought out by our own self. Ultimately, these are the areas where we have problems. So he brings out this, that, he talks about who is a Jitatmanaha. Jitatmanaha is one who has been able to conquer this. And by doing so, he is, Prashanta, he's very serene. He gets that ultimate calmness which we are looking for. And why does he get that calmness? Because he is in touch with his own self. Ultimately, that is his own real self. And that is why that is the only way you can get it. So he is here, the way he is bringing that aspect of calmness for the mind is not saying that, okay, you do this, you do that, then you will get calm. That is not what he's looking at. Here he's trying to point out what are the causes because of which you're not able to get the calmness. That is how this shloka is shown so beautifully. And that is why he's showing the situations, the situations in which we have this physical discomfort, mental discomfort, and the discomfort to our own ego. So these three areas, if I take care of, then I will automatically become calm. So you see, I mean, instead of focusing on the act of meditation, he's saying focus more on understanding why you're not able to meditate. And therefore, he gives this. And here you can see the yoga yukta, because it's here he talks about jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahitaha shitoshna sukha dukkeshu tatha manapamana yoho, where the yoga yukta, he's basically trying to show how this is yoga, the same Vishuddhatma, the same words are repeated in chapter 5, shloka number 7. Yoga yukta Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriyaha, the same Jitendriyaha. That is why I brought the shloka here. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Apina Libhyate. So if you combine these two shlokas, now you see how he's trying to say that a person who recognizes who he is, not this Sunitha who is looking at the world. If a person is able to recognize that essence, such a person is not affected by any of the things which happen at the physical, mental, or the intellectual planes, the shita, the heat and the cold, and the pain and this which is at the mental level, and ultimately at the ego level where we experience this praise and insult. So just wanted to bring that shloka from 5th chapter. From time to time, I'm going to bring some of these chapter shlokas, which you'll be able to see. And matter of fact, in chapter 12, there was 2 shlokas. Let me see if I can. In chapter 12, there are also 2 shlokas, Samashatraucha mitrecha tatha manapamanayoho. Same words will come in shloka in chapter 12, in shloka number 18, where he says the same manapamanayoho, shitoshna sukha dukkheshu sama sangha vivarjitaha. So in chapter 12, which is all about bhakti yoga, he talks about the person who is beyond all this. So from that standpoint, he comes there. But here, the comparison between these 2 shlokas here is, so you see how shlokas 5, 7, 6, 7, and 12, 18, they're all sort of connected. So a person who is like this is a witness, who remains a witness to all the changes. So how beautiful is that for us, right? If I can just say, okay, yes, I'm feeling cold. Let me, instead of complaining about the fact that, oh, I'm feeling cold, I do what I need to do to take care of that cold weather. But at the heart of hearts, I know that I am not this body, We get identified with our body and then we get upset if I'm not able to handle the weather changes. So this is a way to withdraw myself from that aspect. So this is the one he's trying to say, being Prashantatma and being the same with regard to the situations. Now let us see, so this is where Meena actually brought this shloka of how is this different from in chapter 2, where we also talked about the heat and cold. So I thought I'll just put that shloka up here, which is Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkhadaha, Agama Payino Nityaha, Tam Stitikshasva Bharata. So you see how the words have in different chapters, here we see again Shita Ushna. Shita Ushna now has come in 3 shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, which is 2:14, and then the 6:7, and then in chapter 12, 18 shloka. Now here, this being almost, I would say, the first time that Lord Krishna is introducing Vedanta to Arjuna, he's trying to give Arjuna the flavor that at the end of the day, hey Arjuna, you are not this body, mind, and intellect. And he's trying to say in this shloka that they are all coming and going. Agama payino nityaha. They have a beginning and they have an end. So the heat and the cold and everything, which we all know through many different ways, right? Through our seasons, through even in a day, how, early morning and evening, it's kind of a little cooler. So all these, they have a beginning and an end. So the shlokas are designed in such a way that we are not paying attention to actually the words of heat and cold and everything, but it is the tatparya behind why he's saying it. And that essence is to recognize that they are all temporary. They all have a beginning and they have an end. That's that aspect which Lord Krishna is wanting us to know about it. And that is why when she brought the shloka up, I thought it was so beautiful, because here in this shloka, he's explaining that essence of why we have to think about heat and cold. Otherwise, we may say, oh, yeah, that is true. Heat and cold, I see that insult and praise and all that. But do I ever pay attention to the fact that they are all temporary? And if they are temporary, why am I paying attention to it so much? Why can't I just get over it? we all sometimes think about, oh my God, this person told me this, and I still remember 10 years from now, 10 years later, this happened to me. Why did this happen to me? I'm telling you, that is such a powerful sentiment. If only we can get over that aspect of it, our life is so much more beautiful, because they all happened at a time in our lives which was very different. I think it was either Albert Einstein or maybe Mark Twain, I don't remember, one of them, who said, we can never try to solve a problem with something that happened long time back, with the same kind of a mindset, So when a certain problem happens to us, there are many variables together which comes to create that problem. But as we move on, that whole dynamics is changed. And if I continue to have the same kind of a feeling with something that happened 10 years before, then it doesn't make any sense at all. And this is, was beautifully brought out in this quote. But in Bhagavad Gita, here it is to show that agama payino nityaha, anitya, that is the important thing also. They have a beginning and end, and they are impermanent. They're temporary. So just beautiful two shlokas. I just put them both of them in the same thing, so you can see the comparison. So in second chapter, Krishna is just kind of giving him the theory. And here he's coming to, in shloka 5-7, he's now telling him that what happens if you recognize the temporariness and everything. Now, you see, the mind is the one which is really creating the issue for us in thinking that all these are permanent. That is, heat and cold and everything is permanent, and making us feel bad and all that. Now, he's trying to show that, but if you have really conquered this aspect because you've understood the temporariness, you can actually have that peace, because ultimately you will recognize that all the others were anitya. And what is nityam, or what is permanent, is that Supreme Self. So any thoughts or any questions on this? Meena, does it make sense?
Makes sense.
Yes. So I think from 2.14, Arjuna was in a very low the status, so he did not know what to do. So maybe in 5.7, it is a little bit advanced. Yes. What the Lord Krishna is trying to teach. Mm-hmm. That's what I am thinking.
Correct. That is true, because in the shloka 2.14, he doesn't tell him about the fact that you are that supreme reality or that supreme self, right? Mm-hmm. He's just giving him sort of, or just telling him that contact, this, it's only because you have, no, he's just kind of giving him a theory part of it there. Yes. But in the 5.7, he's already telling him the reason why you shouldn't be
one who has conquered himself. One who has conquered himself. Mm-hmm. He has the supreme on him. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just thought maybe we can relate these two, and I wanted to get some information from you. Thank you so much for the.
You're welcome. Please do keep bringing such things, because at the minute when you all bring this points, it is so nice to be able to compare and see why is it in each chapter they have different shlokas also,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you very much.
It almost seems like it's a before and after kind of thing, right? Like in chapter 2, he's talking about like before before getting onto the path of self-realization. And then chapter 5 is like, now that you're on the path, then it's a further take on the same.
Right. It is a little more advanced. It's almost like, I go through in 10th or in 8th grade, I learn about what is electricity. And then I really when I come to my master's degree, then I go deeper into understanding that it's made of electrons flowing and all that. So deeper concepts. Yeah. Very good. So this is about the situations. So situations of heat and cold and all that is explained. Then next thing is about objects. What is our relationship with our objects? And that is the thing which he gives us that example that I talked about, the anvil. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samaloshtashma Kanchanaha. So again, quite a few concepts here. The objects part of it is Samaloshtma Kanchanaha. So here you have the aspect of earth, the stones, and gold, So the person is able to recognize again how one part of it, of course, is the temporary and the permanentness, impermanence, temporary impermanence aspect of it, which is shown, at the end of the day, we know that a diamond is nothing but carbon, right? Carbon and charcoal and diamond is the same carbon, but they're only different. But I have attached my importance to those objects. So here he's trying to show that who is a kutastaha and who has, so it's all at the level of the senses. At the level of the senses, I attach that importance. And that is why this kutastaha word is so very important, because the word kutastha comes from the word kuta, which means the anvil. And the anvil is this bottom plate, which totally resists all changes, no modification, it just doesn't undergo any modification at all. And that aspect of kutastha, he's trying to show that, saints are kutastha, who have recognized the firmness or abidance, or having that total abidance in that highest self. So that is why he, and such, great Mahatmas have really understood their own nature, and they are in abidance with that nature, which is the more permanent aspect of ourselves. And that is the idea behind. And once when we have this aspect, then whether it is a clod of earth, a gold bar, or precious stones, it doesn't matter at all. The person is totally equal, has an equal samadrishti towards all these things. So question again for us to reflect upon is, how can we take this and apply to our own lives? Not that we're going to have on a mantelpiece these three things and then we're going to look at the same thing, but again, it's at the mental level. At the mental level, how can I start to, because again, this is this thing, right? It is not that when I look at all three of them, I say, okay, you're all the same, but mentally have I processed that information at the end of the day? They're all nothing but the same. That is the key part of it here. And then coming to people. Now, when we talk about people, Geeta had raised one point and I wanted to address that from last week. So here we see that 9 types of people were addressed. So we have Suhrid, who's a well-wisher, Mitra, a friend. And then we have Udasina and Madhyasa. In my next slide, actually, probably I'll go to the next one. So the 9 things we talked about last time. Now, how do we group them? We can actually group these 9 personalities who come into our lives into literally 3 different groups, So we have the Suhrid people who are there to help us with, who totally show unconditional love. I gave this example last time about when I'm driving on the highway, if something happens to my car, somebody comes and helps me without even thinking anything about the fact that, oh my God, what if I'm helping this person in the car? Does he have a gun? Or, that a total, complete wants to just help. Suhrid. Mitra is a person who is not necessarily unconditional, but who knows us and who can help us because we know them. Now, then Bandhu is the relatives, and then Sadhu is, of course, noble people who are just noble at heart. So they have absolutely, they're just there because of the nobility, so they help in because of that too. But then we have the Ari and Dvesha, we can understand too. Ari means an enemy, and Dvesha means the person who has a lot of ill feelings towards us, so Ari and Desha. But then this two group of people, we may say, who is an Udasina. Udasina is a person who is a neutral person. And because Gita brought this up, I thought, it is sometimes I think, when we live, we don't even worry. 1 second, sorry, I just need to. Hari Om. Varum. Yeah, Varum. Priya Varum now. Okay. Okay. Sorry, the bus is waiting. So anyway, point being here is Udasina is the person who, when I don't even care about who my neighbor is, or that's the kind of Udasina. Udasina is, I live my life. I'm very comfortable where I am. And so long as I'm comfortable, I'm fine with it. You can look at it that way. It's kind of a neutral person. I really, it doesn't bother me what's happening in my neighbor's home. It doesn't bother me what is happening in this, So we don't want to be an Udasina. We want to be a person who's at least connected in some fashion. Maybe not too much, but at least we know what it is. So Madhyastha, we said, are mediators. So the idea is, why is it important for us to recognize how we need to be with people? Is that this really helps us to shape our thinking, because this is again, people, even with objects and situations, we might be able to deal with it. But ultimately, it is the people. And as we grow older, what happens, people play a lot more of a part in our lives. So that is why this is kind of a very important aspect that we really need to we need to think through. And what I'm going to do for you is, I would like you to think a little more on this aspect, on how do people influence us, and how can I develop a practice for myself which will help me deal with people, which will help me have this samabuddhi, because this shloka is very important for us, where we can really spend some sadhana on this. What does samabuddhi mean? And actually, I have two different angles which I wanted to put. One is a philosophical angle, and one which is more down to earth angle, but we will go through that shlokas next week. Okay. So we will stop at this point. I had prepared a few, but again, this was another one which I wanted to compare with another shloka from chapter 5, which is the shloka where he talks about having the samabuddhi towards people, the cow, the elephant, if you remember, a pandit. So we'll compare with those two shlokas. Okay, so we'll stop here. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you very much for your patience with me. Sorry that I have to go.
Thank you, Sunitha.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunitha ji.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.